Good morning to you all. As mentioned, my name is Anders Ljungqvist. I'm a pharmacist by training, and I'm the VD of RhoVac. And RhoVac is a Scandinavian biotech company listed on Aktietorget, which is a multilateral trading facility. We were listed in March 2016, and now at a price of about 8.30 Swedish kronor. And today we are at a price level of around 25 Swedish kronor. So what do we work with? We also work with the immuno-oncology, as the other presenters have discussed, but our approach is slightly different. We are using the immune system to fight metastasis. And we do that by activating the immune system and activating the T cells in the immune system. So this is a T cell activation. It's not an antibody activation. To be able to activate these T cells, to fight cancer cells, specific cancer cells, we need to give the T cells a target. And the target that we are working with is the protein RhoC. And RhoC is interesting from the point of view that it's overexpressed, meaning high concentrations in all cancer cells having a metastatic potential. And this is the way that we can fight metastasis in cancer. This overexpression that has been shown by a number of researchers is across the field of metastatic cancer cells, meaning it potentially could be used for a number of different cancer indications. So why do we think that RhoC is very interesting? First of all, when we are trying to find new antigens in our research group, we're always looking at antigens that have a role, a function in the cancer cells. And in relation to RhoC, the role is that it's related to the motility, the ability of the cancer cell to move from one site to a different site. This is what we are using here. So we can attack, if we can reduce RhoC, the cancer cell cannot move. And in that way, we can avoid metastasis. As mentioned before, RhoC is overexpressed in more or less all metastatic cancer cells, again, given by very broad indication possibility. Mutations, that's often a problem when you're working with cancer vaccines. And the reason for that is that if the antigen, the protein is mutated, you cannot target it. But with RhoC, the case is that it very, very seldom mutates, and therefore what is called immune escape is not likely to happen with this treatment. Then the RhoC is by the National Cancer Institute regarded as a prioritized cancer antigen in their research that they did some years back. Now, I think all of you know that there has been a number of different cancer vaccines on the market developed, and they have not had the big success that was expected of this way of treating cancer. So why do we think that we are have a better possibility? And first of all, we are aiming at treating the cancer at a very early stage, at the time when we have a low tumor burden. Many of the others have waited to treat until late in a cancer development. So this is the first point. Development immune resistance is also a problem with these cancer vaccines. But RhoC is not overexpressed until the cells start to metastasize. And this is in general the same time as the disease is diagnosed. So the body, the immune system, have not been exposed to the overexpression for a long time at the time when you start treatment, and therefore it reduces the risk for immune resistance. And finally, if you go back in time, you would see that many of the cancer vaccines used what is called short peptides. These are 8 to 10 amino acid sequences, while we are using long peptides. Ours is on 20 amino acids. And the long peptides is activating not only the CD8 killer cells, but also the CD4 T cells. And this provides a better immune response than only activating the CD8 cells. So for this reason, we think that we have a better possibility in reaching a good result with this treatment. Now, working with this treatment, as I mentioned, in a very early stage of disease development. And if we take, for example, prostate cancer progression, you will see in the beginning here you have the local therapy, and that's this where, at least in Scandinavia, most of the patients will get surgery. Following that surgery, they will not get any treatment. Active monitoring, that is what the patients will receive. What we can do, because the safety profile of the product is very good, we can start treatment already at this early stage of disease development. And this, the authorities have already accepted that we can do, which gives us a new possibility. Other treatments, newer treatment, as you see on this graph, is attacking the cancer at a much later stage after the patients have gone through secondary treatment. So we would like to prevent or at least limit the relapse of cancer. And in doing that, we want to start as early as possible with our treatment. So the ongoing clinical trial, which is a first-in-man clinical trial, a phase 1/2 trial in prostate cancer patients. These patients have finalized their initial treatment and are in the phase where they are observed but don't get any other treatment. And this is for us a very good thing, because then we can see how our product, if there are any side effects with our product, without interference from any other treatment. So what we do is, the primary objective of this first clinical trial is obviously to look at the safety and the tolerability of the cancer vaccine. Secondary treatment is to monitor if the immune response we get the response from the immune that we are looking for. That means a vaccine mediated immune response. That's the secondary objective. And then we have an explorative objective where we try to compare the immune response with a PSA level. PSA, that's a bioindicator that is used normally in prostate cancer to measure the progress in the cancer. And we also try to assess if we can see any indication of what is called progression-free survival. I shall mention already now that the size of this study is too small to make any conclusions on the explorative objectives. It's more there to present and discuss data. So, the status of this clinical study is that the patients are given all in all 11 injections subcutaneously. And in the beginning we give 1 injection per second week, and after the first 3 months we get 1 injection per month. We finalized the recruitment period for these patients in July last year, and at this point all patients have finalized the treatment. The last patient did get his last injection the 16th of February. The next step is there to take the final blood samples, which will happen by the end of this month, maybe very early in April. The safety status right now looks very good. It's an open study, which means that both the doctor and the patient know that what they are going is a one-arm study, so all get the active treatment. So it's easy to review the safety of the product. And no safety issues has been encountered, so the study can continue without interruption. As mentioned, we are also measuring the immune response in this study. And the immune response must be measured to get robust and reproducible results at the same time. And that will happen in April and Q2. However, to get the analytical method, which is called interferon gamma Elispot, To get that correct, it has to be adapted to the antigen used in this study, our antigen. We did this in the fall last year, and following this new protocol that had been developed, we decided to test 8 patients where we had sufficient number of lymphocytes to see if the method worked. And results from this analysis is that all patients have received 6 of the 11 injections at the time, and 7 out of the 8 patients showed a significant immune response. And this is a very promising result. That is not often you see such a significant result and such a significant immune response. And it was also noted that 6 out of the 7 patients responding already get their immune response after 4 injections, which means approximately 6 weeks after the treatment has been initiated. And that is fairly early in the process that they're getting this. These results are very promising, and that's why we decided to present them already in December. It's likely that the results that we will get here by the end of Q2 on the real clinical study will be very similar to the results that we showed last year. It has to be done, obviously. All the patients have to be analyzed. There are 22 patients all in all. But the results obtained right now is so strong that we believe that the results in April will in later second quarter will be very, very good. So that's the clinical part, and that's obviously very interesting. Another part that is very necessary and interesting also is the regulatory development. When we are working with cancer vaccines, there are very few regulatory guidelines that can be used to get guidance how you should develop and what kind of documentation that the authorities need. And therefore, we have utilized our SME status, small medium-sized enterprise, at EMA to discuss with EMA to ensure that what we are doing is what the authorities are looking for. So they had the first meeting, which was an SME briefing meeting in September, a very positive meeting. And EMA proposed that we go directly to what is called a scientific advice procedure, and that is the preparation for the next clinical study. And we started that procedure in January, had a meeting, a pre-submission meeting as it is called, on the 20th of February. And the procedure is now ongoing, and we expect to get the conclusion of the procedure by the end of April, except if EMA would like to have an additional face-to-face meeting, then it will take 1 more month to get the final conclusion of the procedure. So the regulatory development is progressing well, and we are in front, so to say, of what is needed for planning of the next clinical phase. So back to my old development plan that I now have shown since the mid-2015. And again, we have completed what we have promised to do in our prospectus in 2016. And the only thing missing now from that is completion of the clinical report and the clinical trial, continuing the research that is ongoing, and then the planning of the next clinical phase. Need to say also that we are on time with this plan, and we are on budget with this plan, and that's important information, I think. So the clinical trial is ongoing and on track, and the regulatory development is on track, so the focus now is business development. As we have said in our business model, we want to see if we can license the project after we have completed the ongoing clinical trial, or maybe sell the company. That's obviously up for discussion with potential partners, potential parties that are interested in our project. So what we do in the business activities here, we identify potential customers. We contact these customers, give them information, and engage with them to discuss the possibilities for further development. That is done in one-to-one meetings with a giving partner, or it's done at biopartnering events. And as you could see this morning, we have engaged and hired David Kopman from Kopman Consulting to assist us in the business development. David has a very good track record and is known by a number of Swedish companies. Now, what are we selling? The business case that we are selling. First of all, we have a good patent protection for this business case, granted in Australia, US, Japan, and EU. In Canada, it's still pending. We have a continuation in US ongoing. That means if the US patent law is changed, which is likely, most experts say, we can continue the patent. So it's not a closed patent. So it's a very good patent protection we have, up to 2028 in Europe and up to 2032 in USA. And for all these markets, there are possible extensions of the patent, different from market to market, but up to approximately 5 years extension is possible. So again, the business case is a very big market. 14 million new cases of cancer every year. It's enormous. The market is valued to be in the area of 100 billion US dollar, so it's an enormous market. If we see specifically on the cancer vaccines, it's evaluated that these will have a value in 2022 of 7.5 billion US dollars. Still a very, very, very big market. Again, the business case that we are selling, discussing, is that we already have the development plan for the next 3 years. And this development plan is substantiated in that we have discussions with the relevant authorities. We have discussions with key opinion leaders. And with the clinical trial that we are proposing, it will be up to a partner to say whether this is the way forward. But this will have a quality that if it shows good results, it will be classified as a pivotal study. And that means that after the clinical trial had been finished, it's possible, potentially possible, I would say, to go for a submission, a new drug application, or a marketing authorization application. That means that there is a possibility to launch the product already around 2022 and not wait for the phase 3 clinical trials. This is what we have discussed with EMA, and this is the way that we have designed the clinical trial to have that possibility. And the research activities is obviously continuing also if a new partner will come in. So if we sum up the business case, I think we have a unique immuno-oncology product. We have a project that is in a phase 1-2 development, which will be completed in the second quarter this year. We have a development project that is on track from a timing point of view and from a budget point of view. There is a very interesting global market. We have a good patent protection, and we currently are discussing with potential investors and partners, and I should underline we are discussing, we are not negotiating at this time. It's too early yet. So I think with these words, I would like to say thank you for your time and see if we have a person that would ask me some questions. Thank you very much.
In the meantime, why this rush, why this haste with selling the company when you're onto something that interesting?
Yeah. The reason for that is that we, first of all, have promised the investor to do that. That was part of the original plan, and we would like to keep our promises. From a purely financial point of view, I agree with you that there may be an upside that could be interesting. But if we should change the strategy, I think that needs more discussions also with the investors before we do that. We also have to remember that with all development of products, there is a risk. projects failed in phase 2 and in phase 3. So maybe the investors would like to see an exit already at this point. However, we also say in our business model that the board will evaluate if the value can be built a better way in the project. And this will obviously, in the negotiations that we have with partners forward-looking, have to be evaluated. If a deal is better, not selling, not licensing it all at this point, we have to discuss it with the investor. But the goal, the first priority is, as we have promised the investor, to go for sale. That's the reason why.
That was a very good first question.
It is.
I was about to ask it myself. So, actually, speaking about licensing, you actually today came out with a press release that you have contracted a consultant specialized in finding partners, basically. Could you tell us a bit about the plan?
Well, we already started the business development, active business development in September last year. And we waited until September because we needed some clinical results and clinical progress before we can do that. At this time, we need more energy, we need more resources to do the business development. And we decided then to engage with a person that have a good track record instead of building it inside the company. And that's when the name David Coltman came up. He has a good track record. Also here in Scandinavia, where he has assisted other companies with different deals. So that's the reason why we did that, just simple strengthen our business development activities.
Yeah. And as you mentioned, you are looking forward to fairly soon very interesting trial results.
Yeah.
And but of course, this the business development work has to be initiated and be ongoing, as to speak. And one would be very curious then as to knowing something about the interest that you have received so far from potential partners. Is there anything you can tell us about that?
Yes, as mentioned, we are not in negotiations, so I can tell you more general what the responses are. And as with, I think, the majority of big pharma company, the Big 10, so to say, they are very interested because it's a different approach. But as a big company with a big bag of money, they also say, I want to see the clinical data before we go on with the negotiations or discussions. And that's the general answer. I think the most interesting response we get is that we are focused on avoiding relapse of a disease. And that's not many other projects that have done that. And as you see, the far majority of cancer patients die from the relapse, from metastasis, and not from the primary tumor. And it's a logical approach to look at that specifically. It has been difficult for some other projects due to the side effects generally with a number of the cancer treatments. But we have with this cancer vaccine a treatment with very, very good tolerability and basically no relevant side effects. So therefore you have the possibility to start a treatment very early as an adjuvant treatment. I think that's what interesting a number of other companies.
You will be asked more questions about this, I'm sure, by Tobias, our analyst, in a few moments. As for now, I thank you very much for coming and presenting to us today.
Thank you for your time. Thank you.